If you like mysterious and scary stories, then this is the channel for you. Welcome to Wicked World. Today, we're diving into one of the most haunting stories ever shared on Reddit. A story that leaves you questioning the nature of reality itself. Buckle up, because this is not your average spooky tale. This is the story of Mitch, his perfect life, and a lamp that wasn't what it seemed. The story begins innocently enough in 2004 with Mitch, a senior in college in Louisiana, and a classmate named Kayla. Mitch had been infatuated with Kayla for years. He made numerous attempts to woo her, and eventually she agreed to go on a date with him. They hit it off, and what started as a casual college romance quickly blossomed into something more. By 2006, Mitch and Kayla were married, living the American dream. They had bought a beautiful home with a white picket fence and were both happy in their careers. Life was perfect. Fast forward to 2007. The couple welcomed their first child, a daughter, and 2 years later, a son. Mitch and Kayla loved being parents. They made time for family game nights, romantic dates, and cherished every moment spent together. It was a picture-perfect life, one that seemed almost too good to be true, but in the background, something far more sinister was at play. In 2009, Mitch was enjoying a quiet day at home, watching football, when something strange happened. A red lamp sitting in the corner of the room caught his attention. It wasn't anything special, a typical, nondescript lamp you'd find at any department store. But as Mitch glanced over, he noticed that the lamp was blurry. Everything else in the room was sharp and clear, but the lamp, the actual physical object, not the light it emitted, was inexplicably out of focus. Mitch rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. His vision was fine, and the rest of the room looked normal, but the lamp remained blurry. A sense of unease crept over him. He stood up, walked over to the lamp, and touched it. Still blurry. The confusion and tension built in his mind, but like many people confronted with something inexplicable, Mitch dismissed it. He told himself it was probably nothing, just his eyes playing tricks on him. He returned to the couch and tried to focus on the football game, but his eyes kept drifting back to the lamp. Then something even stranger happened. The lamp moved. Despite no one touching it, the lamp turned upside down, all while still remaining blurry. Mitch was alarmed, but oddly, he didn't feel compelled to call for help. He thought about telling Kayla, but he ultimately decided against it. He couldn't explain it, and part of him didn't want to acknowledge that something was wrong. When his family returned home that evening, everything seemed normal. Kayla and the kids went about their evening routine, completely unaware of Mitch's strange encounter with the lamp. Yet, the odd occurrence stayed with him, nagging at the back of his mind. That night, after Kayla and the children had gone to bed, Mitch found himself unable to sleep. He was drawn back downstairs, compelled to check on the lamp. In the darkness, he could still see it, blurry and upside down. He sat down on the couch and stared at it for hours, unable to tear his eyes away. When Kayla woke up the next morning, she found Mitch still on the couch, staring intently at the lamp. Concerned, she asked him what was wrong. Mitch, struggling to explain, lied and said he wasn't feeling well. He told her he'd stay home from work that day to rest, something completely out of character for him. Mitch never took days off. As Kayla and the kids left for the day, Mitch stayed behind, his attention consumed entirely by the lamp. Hours passed, and he didn't move. When Kayla returned home that evening, the house was dark except for the glow of the lamp. Mitch was still sitting on the couch, staring at it, completely unresponsive to his wife's voice. Kayla panicked. She called the doctor, unsure of what to do while urging her kids upstairs, away from their father's bizarre behavior. At that moment, Mitch's reality shifted. The lamp, which had remained upside down and blurry, began to grow. It expanded until it filled his entire field of vision. Soon, the world around him dissolved into darkness, and he was overtaken by a blinding pain in his head. A ringing filled his ears, and the last thing he heard was the sound of people screaming. When Mitch opened his eyes, he was no longer in his home. He was lying on the ground, surrounded by a crowd of college students. He stood up, disoriented, and began frantically searching for his wife and children, but they weren't there. Instead, a police officer approached him, grabbed him by the arm, and without a word, dragged him to a nearby patrol car. As they sped away, Mitch demanded answers, asking where his family was and what had happened. The officer, seemingly unfazed by Mitch's confusion, simply replied, "Sir, you hit your head. I'm taking you to the hospital." It was then that the truth began to unravel. Mitch wasn't in his home with his wife and kids. He was still in college. There was no Kayla, no children, no dream house with the white picket fence. In reality, Mitch had been tackled during a football game, hitting his head and losing consciousness for for only a few seconds. In that brief moment, his brain had constructed an entire alternate life, a perfect life that he believed he had lived for years. Mitch had to grapple with the harrowing realization that everything he thought was real. The love, the joy, the family was all a figment of his imagination. His wife and children had never existed. The lamp, the house, the life he cherished were nothing more than illusions created by his brain during the seconds he was unconscious. The psychological toll on Mitch was unimaginable. He had to grieve for people who had never existed, yet to him, they had been as real as anyone. He had spent years in this alternate reality, and the sudden loss of that life left him devastated. Mitch shared his story in a Reddit post, detailing the agony of mourning a family he had loved deeply, only to discover they were nothing more than a dream. Even years later, Mitch admitted that he would still dream of his imaginary son, perpetually 5 years old, running around a corner as if that life had never truly let him go. To this day, Mitch attends therapy to cope with the trauma of losing his fictional family. The experience haunted him, affecting his ability to move on with his real life. In his Reddit Ask Me Anything post, Mitch described the overwhelming grief that consumed him, explaining how difficult it was to process the loss of people who had never existed outside of his mind. The lamp story is a chilling reminder of the mind's power to deceive us. Mitch's brain, in a fraction of a second, constructed an entire life. A life so vivid and detailed that he could recall it as if he had lived it for years. It's a testament to the fragility of our perception of reality and how easily our minds can create entire worlds, complete with emotions, relationships, and memories. Mitch's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How much of our reality is shaped by our mind? How easily could we be deceived by our own perceptions? And what happens when the lines between fantasy and reality blur so completely that we can't distinguish one from the other? In the end, the lamp story leaves us with a haunting realization. Sometimes, the scariest things aren't what we see or hear, but what our own minds can create. Wow, what a mind-bending story, right? If you enjoyed that and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We dive into the most chilling, thought-provoking, and sometimes unbelievable tales from around the world. Trust me, you don't want to miss out. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of today's story, and if there are any other strange or mysterious tales you want me to cover. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep questioning reality.